All right. Hey guys, how's it going? It's me. It is Wednesday night, about 11 p.m., and the stream looks good. So let's talk about lowball offers. Um, had a call over the weekend with an Atova agent with a listing. We got a lowball offer on it, and the agent wanted some advice on how to deal with that. And then, interestingly, today I got a call from another Atova agent that has a buyer that wanted to write a lowball offer. And the agent wanted some advice for that. So, within a 3 day span, 4 day span, um, two different lowball offer scenarios. And I'm wondering if that's kind of like reflective of um, people feeling different about the market. It's like when the market is hot, nobody talks lowball offers. It's just everybody just kind of knows. So I'm wondering if there's like a sense of um, maybe it's the transition into fall weather that's the culprit. But just interesting that would happen twice in just a few days. So I wanted to share the advice that I gave with both agents with everybody. And let's go ahead and start with the buyer side. So on the buyer side, one of the things I recommend, we'll log into Paragon here. One of the things I recommend when you're dealing with a buyer that wants to write a lowball offer is to share with them actual market data. And oftentimes you can counsel buyers until you're exhausted, and you can show them all the data in the world. And I just remember buyers, some buyers just, no matter what you say, no matter what information you share with them, they're set in their plan to come in, $50,000 less than asking on a reasonably priced listing, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And so sometimes you just have to. There's no substitute for experience. So you could counsel them, you could show them data. They're not going to listen to you. So go ahead and write up a lowball offer and let them go through the experience of having their offer fail. And then maybe you have to do it a second time. It's like, okay, well, let's try it with this property. And they want to lowball that one. Okay, so you lowball that one and it fails as well. And so they may not listen to you, but they will, most often, they will respond well to actual experience when they experience it firsthand. I just remember that back when I was working with buyers, I would have, I can't remember specific buyers, but I do remember being in that circumstance where they want to write a lowball offer. I try to counsel them otherwise. They won't listen. So just kind of shrug your shoulders, write that offer low, let the deal fail before it even starts. Perhaps do it again, let that deal fail before it starts, and then finally the buyer realizes, oh, okay, yeah, you were right. And then they finally come to their senses and enter the world of reason. So when all else fails, don't be afraid to write a couple lowball offers for a buyer client if that's what it takes to get them to eventually become reasonable. But prior to getting to that point, one thing you can do is you can try and show them market data to help them understand that $50,000 low on a $300,000 listing, it probably isn't going to happen, right? So let's pretend that you're working with a buyer in the bench. They're looking for a home in the Boise Bench. So we're going to look at sold listings in the Boise Bench, which is area 400. And let's look at reasonably recent time frame. So we'll go closing date 1, 2, 3. So in the past 3 months. So everything sold in the past 3 months in the bench. There are 181 listings. So we'll just click on search, and we don't need to look at the individual sales data. We have some mobile stuff here and some condos and some townhouses. Let's go ahead and go back to our criteria, and let's get rid of that. So let's go here to type, and we'll just do single family. So all single family sales in the bench in the past 3 months, there's 153 of them. We'll hit search again. And we do also have, we're going to have I would imagine, a bit of a price range. There's the first 100. Wondering if, how high they go up to. That's 325. So they go up to $1 million in the bench. So I would probably add one other point of criteria, and that would be the price range that the buyer is looking in. So let's say that buyer is looking in the $300,000 price range. Let's go ahead and do 250 to 350. So in the bench, all sold listings in the past 3 months from 250 to 350,000. There's 76 of them. We'll hit search. So now we've got a reasonably, relevant set of criteria. We don't need to look at the individual listings. We're just going to export this straight to Excel. So export to CSV. Make sure all listings are selected and hit export. That will create an Excel file, which once my virus software decides that the Excel file is safe, we will open. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the average percentage discount between the asking price and the sold price. So when you open an Excel file, sometimes you can't see everything. This is the word single family. It's kind of cut off here. These hashtag or pound signs denote the row not being wide enough to display the numbers. So you can come up here and you can click between the columns, hold and drag to widen or narrow a column width, or you can double click to make the column width perfect. Double click. I just undid it. Or you can click here. So between the A and the 1, click right here in the corner. Click there once. That will highlight everything. And then if you double click between any 2 rows, it doesn't matter. Just double click between any two columns. Click, and it will auto set the width of every column to be the perfect size. So this is this wide because it's fitting days on market. This is this wide because one of these addresses is going to be filling out the space. So all the columns are now perfect width. We could just scroll over here to, where are we at? Sold price and asking price. So asking price and sold price. So I'm going to put my cursor here, and I'm going to do Alt-I-C, which will insert a column, and then I can do a calculation. So here, this was listed at 262 and sold for 250. Zoom in here so you guys can see a little better. All right, asking 262, sold for 250. This one asking 249.9, sold for 255. So to do that math, we want to make an equal sign here. So let me step back. I created this row. I'm going to delete this. Sorry, I created this column. If you put your cursor here and do Alt I, so I'm holding down the Alt and I press I, and I'm still holding down Alt, and now I press C. That creates a new column. I'm going to put my cursor where I want my calculation to be. I'm going to press the equal sign. I'm going to click my first item that I want to be part of my equation. So when I click here, you can see it puts an N2 there. And I want to hit divide, which is the slash mark on the question mark key. And then I want to click the second part of my equation, click that cell, and then you can see here it says P2, P2. And then I simply press enter. So by default, this is currently a currency column. And so we're going to click this column to highlight everything. So click on the Q to highlight the whole column. We're going to right click. We're going to go to Format Cells. And we're going to change this to a percentage with 2 decimal places. So percentage, 2 decimal places, and then OK. I think I got the equation wrong, so that's okay. We're going to click here, click in the cell, hit the equal sign, click on this divided by that, and that gives us the sale price as a percentage of the asking price. So again, I'll delete that. So I'm going to delete this too. All right, so I'm going to put my cursor here, do Alt, holding down Alt, pressing I, continuing to hold down Alt, pressing C. That creates a new column. Put my cursor here, type in equals, click on this cell once, press the divide by, which is the slash on the question mark, then click on this cell once, then press enter. Then I need to change this from currency. So I'm going to do the whole column. I click on the Q to highlight the whole column. Then I right click anywhere inside the column. And then I choose Format Cells, change it to percentage, make sure there's 2 decimal places, and OK. Let's do that one more time. So I put my cursor here because I want to create a column before. So I put my cursor anywhere in here, press Alt IC, creates the column. Put my cursor where I want select the cell where I want my equation to be. Type in the equal sign. Click on the first cell that I want to be part of my equation. Press the slash on the question mark. Click on the second cell that I want to be part of my equation. And press enter. That's a dollar, it's a currency. We need to highlight the row, so I click on the Q to highlight the entire column, Then I can right click anywhere in here, choose Format Cells, choose percentage, make sure that 2 decimal places is selected, and hit OK. Now that I have my first equation here, I can simply copy, and then I can click, hold, and drag to select the rest of the cells in this column. Then again, I can right click anywhere on that highlighted area, choose paste special, and then choose formulas, because I'm going to paste the formula equals this cell divided by that cell. I'm pasting the formula, but Excel is smart enough to modify that formula to be relative to the row that it's in. So this cell is now equal to that divided by that. And this cell is now equal to that divided by that. So let's do this all one more time. So I'm going to do Alt-IC to insert a blank column. I'm going to put my cursor here, equals that divided by that. Press enter. Hit Q to highlight the whole thing. Right click, Format Cells, change to a percentage, make sure it's 2 decimal places, hit OK, copy that, highlight every other cell by click, holding, and dragging, and then right click anywhere in the shaded space and choose this little guy right here, which is FX. It's like formulas, and you can see here if I did the 1, 2, 3, it just copies in the same exact number. This is pasting the value, the same value over and over again. But if I click here on the formulas, it's copying the formula into each cell, but modifying it for the row that it's in. So that's what I want. So I'm going to click on that, and now we have all of our numbers. So this sold for less than asking, more. So more, you can see there's, you can see what sold for more than asking, what sold for less than asking, pretty easily at a glance. And then we can go down here to the very bottom. We can click the cell here, and we can type in another equation, which is equals average, open parenthesis, equals average, open parenthesis. And then we can just click, hold, and highlight. So click, hold, and drag to highlight all these values. Once you have everything selected, just press enter. And when you do, you get the magic number here, which is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if we look at all the sales in the Boise Bench area in the past 3 months from 250,000 to 350,000, on average, they're selling for more than the asking price. So when you come in $50,000 less, you're making a move that just isn't supported by the market. The market is in a state where sellers are, on average, actually getting more than their asking price. And any halfway knowledgeable seller, or if they have a halfway knowledgeable agent, they're going to know that. And so when you come in, with a lowball offer, it's just not reflective of what's actually happening in the market. And so you could actually show this to the client. Let me zoom out here. We can make a couple quick modifications. So I'm going to get rid of some extra stuff I have here. So pick count, MLS, type. I can leave type. Sold. Price I have over here, asking price and sold price. I don't need it here again. Area 400, I can leave that. Address I can leave. I can leave all this stuff. Alright, and then I can get rid of all this extra stuff at the end. We don't really need this. So I'm just going to highlight those columns and delete the extra stuff. Once I had the column highlighted, I just right clicked on it and selected delete to delete it. I'll undo that. Okay, so, and then here we can give this a title if we want. We can call it discount, of which there is none. All right, so you can now give this to the client. Maybe you can bold that column. So I click the M to highlight everything. I bolded that column, and I'll make it red. And down here at the bottom, I can make this, larger. And then here, I can say average. Make this red as well, and bold, and the same size. And if we make this right justified, so click in the cell, make it right justified, it'll pop out that way. And maybe throw a colon on here. And now you have a file that you can send to the buyer and reference it in your conversation. So Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when we spoke earlier, I know you guys were talking about coming in with an offer of 250,000 on this listing where they're asking 300,000. I just sent you two documents. The first document I sent you was some comparables specific to the property that show the average price per square foot at which the comparable properties are selling. And it's very similar, very close to what the seller is asking. So the seller's asking price per square foot seems to be reasonable given the comparable recent sales. So essentially a CMA or a buyer's value analysis, right? So you give them some comps that show that the price per square foot is reasonable. I also sent you a second document, which is all the sales in the Boise Bench area from 250 to 350 in the past 3 months. And what I did there is I ran a discount, so asking price versus the sold price, so that you guys could see, on average, how much sellers are coming down right now. And on average, sellers are not coming down at all. On average, sellers are actually getting more than what they're asking for. Um, there was one where the seller took a 12% discount, which is the most that any seller came down. So on a $300,000 home at a 12% discount, which would be 88%, equals this times that. That's not $50,000 off, but it's $36,000 off. But I ran the comps on that particular sale, and the reason that happened is because the seller was overpriced to begin with. The going market rate was, $250 a square foot, and they were asking $285 a square foot, which is, of course, even more than the subject property that you were thinking about writing an offer on, which is at $255 a square foot. So the reason they came down so far on this one is because they were overpriced to begin with, which is not a characteristic that the home that you're interested in shares. Your home that you're interested in is priced correctly. So this is really an anomaly. And if you get rid of that, everything else is really pretty much 100% or more, with a few 98s, 95s thrown in there. Definitely not a market where you're going to get a $50,000 discount on a $300,000 ask. I just don't want to see you write an offer that has no probability of success. This is another thing I used to share with buyers. I actually learned this from, I think it was Larry Coelho. Smith and Coelho is the brokerage, but Larry used to be with Group One. I was with Group One back in the day. And Larry is a super smart guy, and was he worked a few offices down from where I worked, and he was always in the office. And so I remember my first year in real estate, I was always knocking on his door, and he was always willing to help. So credit to Larry. But he told me, he said, one thing you want to tell buyers is that want a lowball. You can tell them that if you offer less than you're willing to pay, you can expect the seller to counter with a price that's higher than the amount that they're willing to accept. And what that means is there's a phenomenon, which is when you lowball a seller, the seller is going to be offended, and oftentimes they're going to say things like, "Oh, okay, well, if you're going to play games with us, then you can pay full price for our house, right? So if you're going to insult me, then if you want my house, you can pay full price for it. Otherwise, forget you, right?" So it establishes these Um, everybody gets pushed to the everybody gets polarized, right? Gets pushed to the extremes. You lowball me, fine, full price. Otherwise, forget it. You're out of here. So if you offer less than you're willing to pay, you can expect the seller to counter with more than they would otherwise be willing to accept. So you'd be wiser to come in with a strong price that is not going to offend the seller and going to keep the conversation for negotiation open. And at the end of the day, anything that you can get that's better than what the estimated market value is going to be instant equity for you. So um, anyway, that's the general way that you want to deal with buyers, right? And show them numbers. Talk about use that little bit of dialogue I just shared with you. Maybe recall some previous experiences that you've had. I also like to put things in terms of like payment difference. So you can go to a PIT calculator, go to Google and type in PITI calculator, and plug in $10,000 at 4.5% interest, 4% interest, and see what that translates into for a. In fact, let's just do it. So we'll go here, calculator. I like mine wasn't even listed there. Where is it? I'm not sure why I reverted to Yahoo there. But I know if I go to Google, there, I like this guy. If you go to Google, type in PITI calculator. This one's at realestateabc.com. It's really easy. So 30 years at 4%, $10,000. You can get rid of taxes and insurance. We're just focusing on principal and interest here. But 30 years at 4% at $10,000, it's $47 a month. So at 30,000, it's $143 a month is what it is. Now this is obviously huge. We're using kind of a large scale example here. 50,000 on a $300,000 ask is probably not going to be what you will actually experience. What you'll probably experience is more like, I want to offer 270 on a $300,000 property, and that's not going to happen. Maybe they end up at 290, right? So if 290 is their target, $20,000 is the difference. It's going to cost them less than $100 a month, right? So it's like don't go out to the steakhouse one time a month. You just make a small adjustment somewhere else, and the home becomes very affordable. Another thing I like to talk about with buyers is that Boise is an emerging market, right? So look at the price disparity between home prices here in the Boise area compared to that of our feeder markets. Homes here are still very affordable comparatively. And so a lot of folks believe that over time, an equilibrium is going to be achieved. So values here will come up, maybe values there will correct a little bit, but over the longer term, it is expected that home prices in the Boise area are going to increase. And so you don't want to find yourself not entering the market, like not buying right now, because you can't get this, amazing, lowball offer deal. So it's like, oh, I can't get this amazing deal right now, so I'm just not going to buy. I think that would be a mistake, because you're not getting into a market that, by and large, most people expect is going to continue to grow over the longer term. Arguably, even paying a premium right now to get into the market makes sense from a longer term perspective. A home here in Boise that's $500,000 is 1.2 million in California, and that price disparity, especially when there's so much. The quality of life here is so strong. You have so many people moving here. It's really expected to drive values up. So I think the smart money is getting into this market because it is considered to be an emerging market. So get a good deal, get a fair deal, but don't miss out on getting into the Boise market just because you can't get an amazing deal compared to today's values. All right, so then on the seller side, when you're dealing with a seller and you get a lowball offer, one of the problems is that you will, especially if you've been on the market for a while. If you've been on the market for a week, you get a lowball offer. It's pretty easy just to brush it aside. It's no big thing. But if you've been on the market for 2 months or 3 months, and your seller has been waiting for the offer, and then finally the offer comes in, but it's garbage. It's a huge frustration. And don't underestimate how frustrating it can be for a seller. In fact, they're oftentimes going to just be so frustrated they start pointing fingers, and they're looking for who's at fault, and of course it's going to be you, right? It's we've been on the market for 3 months, and you bring us this garbage offer. You're a horrible agent. And that's just how it goes, right? So really important to anticipate that, and to address that from the beginning. So there's kind of I think a natural inclination when you get a lowball offer to kind of want to maybe hide a little bit. You kind of you email the offer to the client, and you say, hey, here's an offer. It's not really good. Look it over and call me later, type of approach. And I think that approach is horrible because it allows the situation to fester. And by the time they're calling you, that frustration is already built up, and they're going to unload on you. So I think you want to adopt the opposite approach. When you get a lowball offer on one of your listings, what you want to do is you want to engage the seller very actively and very directly right from the outset. So I would call them up, have a conversation with them, and essentially probably press send, and now the offer's in their email, and then the very next thing you do is pick up the phone and call them. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, just want to let you know, good news, bad news. Good news is we got an offer on the property. Just send it to you. It's in your email. Bad news is it's not any good. And I wanted to call you and talk to you about it in person right away because, when you're on the market for, 2-3 months and you don't get an offer and the first offer comes in and it's lowball, really easy to get frustrated and really easy to just want to give up. And I need to tell you that this offer is not a reflection of the quality of your home. It's not a reflection of our asking price being too high. This offer is simply an example of a buyer who is either uneducated, it just doesn't know what the state of the market is right now, or it's a buyer that's just out there fishing. They're writing offer after offer after offer, just lowballing everybody to try and find somebody that's desperate. And you guys aren't desperate. So my advice is to not read too much into this offer. We know that based upon the comparable recent sales that your price is good. We know that based on the supply and demand analysis that we looked at when we listed your home, that the forecasted time on market was 4 months. We're not there yet. So it's normal for us to be where we're at, and this lowball offer is just an anomaly. So again, don't read too much into it. It's not reflective of anything other than the fact that this buyer is kind of crazy. Now, with that being said, there is a natural inclination for sellers to, I'd be the same way. If I'm listing my home, I get a lowball offer. My, knee-jerk reaction is to tell that buyer, take a long walk off a short pier. I'm not selling you my home for twice the price. You come in here, you insult me with your lowball offer. I'm just not interested in selling to you. So good luck with your home search, but we're done. Um, just reject the offer and send them packing. I would recommend against that. As much as that is kind of the rewarding feeling, it makes you feel good. It's not the right business choice. And the reason why is because we don't know, what this buyer has offered, and what they're willing to do may be two entirely different things, right? They may love the home. They may love the home, and they may be willing to pay full price for it. They're just trying to test the waters to see what kind of great deal they can get, right? And so if they're in love with the home and unsophisticated, not knowledgeable, they're just kind of clumsily feeling their way through this process. We can push past all that, and we can just counter back full price, or maybe throw them a bone and come down $1,000. Or if you want to try and really entice them, maybe come down $5,000. But whether we come back full price or throw them a bone at 1,000, or really try to entice them and come down 5,000, wherever you want to be in that range, I would recommend that you do something. Essentially, you want to ignore their offer price. Their offer price is of no consequence. What you want to do is you want to simply counter at a price that makes sense for you. So without regard to their offer price, simply counter at a dollar amount that makes sense for you guys. And if they go for it, wonderful. And if they don't, that's fine. No skin off our back. At least we propose to them. And generally speaking, anytime you're in a negotiation, you never want to be the one that causes the deal to die. Nope, I'm done. Forget it. Never want to do that. Instead, what you want to do is simply leave the table having presented the terms that you're willing to accept. So essentially, it's hey, we're at 347.5, and that's our final offer. If you're interested, let us know. If not, best of luck in the search. And that's it. So you throw it on the table and you disengage. That's pretty much the wise approach. They may even say no right away, but don't be surprised if they come back, 2 days later saying, okay, we'll do it. So the key there, though, is when you get a lowball offer for one of your listings and you've been on the market for a little while, attack it. Attack the issue with the seller. Don't hide. Don't beat around the bush. You really need to go straight to the source and address the issue with the seller to make sure that their emotional response is guided and ultimately constructive. So, and this is pretty cool here too. The discount, should be able to show this to a buyer, can be a little bit more powerful than just words. So instead of just talking to them, you actually have some supporting documentation that can be helpful as well. So that is it for tonight. I know that I've got some other stuff coming up, and I'm going to try and stream at least twice a week on the Atova side, if not more. So more coming your way soon. Until then, thanks a lot, guys. Have a good night. Bye-bye.